Welcome to the Damn Strong podcast. I'm your host, Bree, and I'm a full-time online fitness coach, and my passion is to educate women on all things fitness. I help women just like you step into the power of knowledge and commitment to ultimately live your best and strongest life. In this podcast, we'll talk about being damn strong in our body, mind, and life. I'll be teaching you how to navigate nutrition, strength training, and mindset challenges. So get ready to take some notes because we're building a damn strong life. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Bree, and this is the Damn Strong podcast, and I am back. If you're currently listening to this episode, like when it's actually around when it was posted, yes, I'm finally back. If you're listening to this way in the future, and you're like, what do you mean you're back? Like, what happened? If you look at the dates between this episode and the last episode, I took kind of like a, let's be honest, like 2-month hiatus from the podcast episode, from the podcast. And we'll dive into why, kind of go into that. And then just some learning moments that I've had as I've gotten back into feeling like myself again. So I've really, I don't want to say gaslit, but just really kind of talked myself out of filming the podcast for a while. And now I'm back and we're filming. We're back officially to filming the podcast. It's going to be back to weekly. Don't worry. But I feel like my brain's kind of all over the place. Let's just first walk through like kind of what happened in the most detail that I can get into. And then we'll just kind of talk through the learning moments that I have of how I got from just really having this, I don't know, feeling complete burnout in life and what I said on my stories. If you guys, follow me and were a part of when I was talking about all this on my stories of just having this like high functioning depression and how I feel like myself again, and dealing with that and just kind of the things that I implemented, because I still think it can be helpful to not only just like real life in general, but also your fitness goals as well. So for those of you who did not see me post my stories or anything about this, I just had the only way I can explain this is very high functioning depression. So I would define high functioning depression is I would say it's a form of depression. I try to be careful in just saying like I had depression because it wasn't this clinical thing that I was diagnosed with. And I don't want it to come across as I'm taking me being like sad and unmotivated and undisciplined as, oh my gosh, I have depression. But all of the symptoms that you see associated with depression was having that at a higher level, and not higher level as in worse, higher level as it wasn't affecting my life as much as like a clinical depression would, right? When you have something clinical, whether it's anxiety or depression, that's from my understanding, right? I'm not a therapist or anyone that diagnoses people. From my understanding, it has an actual effect on your daily life and ultimately creates a really large disruption for your daily life. For me, I was still able to function through my daily life. It was just really, 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 really heavy is the only way I know to describe it. It was, I felt it was like impossible to get myself to clean, impossible to get myself to shower, impossible to get out of bed, like all of the typical symptoms that you have with people with depression. That's what I was experiencing, but I was still able to run my business and go to work, quote unquote, and still at the end of the day, still clean up, and take care of myself, but just not to the level that I normally do. And I was just stuck there harder and longer than I ever had been before. And I know it has to do with traveling. So to kind of back up a little bit, I have this like high functioning depression anytime I come home from traveling. People call it like the travel blues or whatever. And seems like it's a totally normal thing. And I don't feel like I experience it to a super high degree. It's, I come back from a trip. It's really hard for me to get back into routine. I don't want to do any of the things I need to do, but I slowly get back into it, work my way back in. And it just is what it is, right? And I'm sure some of you guys experience that as well. This time I got back from a trip and I was just out. Like I could not get enough. I was sleeping, 10, 11, 12 hours at night. When I'd finally wake up, it took heavens and earth to get me out of the bed. And when I was finally out of the bed, like doing stuff was just so difficult. And then once I had taken care of the absolute must task that I needed to take care of, forget like cleaning, like the house just was a mess. And like, yeah, I would do the dishes, but like the counters were dirty. And then like, God, after I'd lived a whole day, now I have to shower. And it's like, oh, I don't want to shower and I haven't worked out. So do I need to shower? And like showering just felt like this burden of a task to do. And I just wasn't taking care of myself. And it just hit me the hardest it ever hit me before. I was really, really struggling to the point where I wasn't posting on social media. I wasn't showing up my stories. I just completely just ghosted everything. I was really, really struggling to show up. And I was like, you know what? I just need to take time off. not going to post if I don't have to. I'm not going to get on my stories. And then kind of the podcast came up. I was like, I'm just going to take a full month off from the podcast, and it being a little bit longer than that. But I'm just going to take time off. And I had someone message me and was like, hey, I haven't seen you post in a while, and I just want to make sure everything's okay. And it meant the world, that someone noticed, that someone loves and cares about, I guess, my presence on social media, or the presence that I have in their life, and how my content helps them, that they would notice that. And they messaged me. I was like, you know what? I wasn't going to say anything. I'm not, like sometimes content creators or whatever will come on and be like, hey guys, I know I've been MIA. And you're like, I didn't even notice you were gone. And so I didn't want to be one of those people who are like, hey guys, I know I haven't been on here and I'm really struggling. I didn't want to come on there and say that when no one had noticed I was gone. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to give myself time and space. If no one notices, that's fine. But someone had noticed. So I came on and just shared that I felt like I had just really been going through, I wouldn't say going through the motions. I was having a hard time even going through the motions, literally starting a motion to go through. And I opened up and I was honest about that. And a lot of people received that really, really well, which is awesome. I wasn't necessarily in fear that people would judge me or be like, oh my gosh, what a weirdo that you're going through this. I knew like it would be a positive thing. But I think the biggest fear that I went through with posting that is I'm a big people pleaser. That's something I've always struggled with in my life. And I didn't want a client to see that I was struggling with this like high functioning depression and to be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to bother her with a tracking question or workout, or, they're having their own struggles of their own and they see their struggles as less. And so they don't reach out to me because they know I'm struggling. I didn't want that to happen. So I was really, really hesitant on ever posting anything about it, because I was like, I'm here for my clients. Like, no matter what I'm going through, like even this high functioning depression, I'm here for my clients. I'm going to show up for you. We're getting on calls, we're texting, like I can do that. And I didn't want them to feel any reason to not reach out to me. And of course, when I posted that reason, I was like, that's a big reason why I didn't post, because I didn't want clients to change how they reach out to me and how they talk to me and how they're doing things. I want to change a relationship and them not get out of coaching what they need because they're trying to, I don't know, not whatever. I don't know. I just had this fear and posted that, and I had clients reach out and like, I hate that you had that fear, and like, I wouldn't change that, and blah, 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 and just reaffirming and stuff. And that was really, really nice. So anyways, posted about that. And I immediately felt when posting that, just this huge weight just lifted off my chest. Actually, well, yeah, let me finish this. I was going to back up and go to why I think it was happening, but let me just keep moving forward. So when I posted that, I had a huge weight lifted off my chest. And it's weird. I don't understand why I had this like weight lifted off my chest, because no one knew I was struggling. So it's not like some people know kind of stuff is going on and I'm not really telling them there's this huge secret or whatever. No one knew anything, but it was just like, it was almost like I gave myself permission to like not be on social media and not show up on social media. And I already had given myself permission, but then like letting everyone know like, hey, I'm taking a little bit of a break. And just saying that out loud just felt really, really nice. Again, I'm having a hard time putting together why that felt so nice, because again, it wasn't like I was alluding to something or you guys, like I told you guys I was struggling and then didn't give any detail. And so it's like this weight of like, everyone knows, but I'm not saying anything. No one knew. No one had any idea. I didn't like, I don't know why. I just did. So coming out and just telling everyone I was struggling, I was going to take time off, was super, super helpful. So with that being said, that's kind of the background if you weren't there for it, or if you were and just didn't know all of this kind of stuff, just give you some insight, right? Now, as to why I was feeling this way, I'm not going to go into details because it does involve like a specific person in my life, but I don't think I realized how much someone being negative can impact me. I'm a very, very optimistic person. I'm someone who always tries to see the positive of everything or tries to find the light at the end of the tunnel, just because I just have a very big basis of how I am as a person is like, yeah, we can focus on the terrible stuff or we can focus on the great stuff about this. Focusing on the terrible stuff just makes you feel worse. Focusing on the great stuff and what you can control makes it more positive, right? And so I always try, I'm just a very, very optimistic person. But when you're with someone or friends with someone for a long amount of time, and every time you're with this person, they're constantly negative and you're having to, and again, me being a very optimistic person, having to always hype them up / make them feel more positive or make them feel better about their life, that weighs on you a lot. I don't think I realized that. People have asked me if I'm an empath. I think I am, right? If someone's crying in front of me, I don't always cry. I feel like empaths, like when someone's crying, they take on that emotion and they start crying. Definitely happens where I do for sure, but not always. And so I try to be really positive around people. And so I don't feel like it affects me as much, but I'm realizing it does. So when I was around someone constantly for a long time, um, and this person is a very negative person always, I don't think I realized how much of a toll that was taking on me personally. And so when you couple, post vacation blues on top of having someone, a friend in your life who is very, very negative and, you're trying to be a positive person in their life, when you combine that together, I think it just hit me really hard all at once, because my first thought was like, maybe the post vacation blues is just hitting me really hard because I had a longer trip. I went to Greece with my mom. And we came back and it was like a whole 10 days we were gone. I was like, no, I've been gone for a long time before, 10-ish days. And I've come back and I've had the same typical post vacation blues that I always do. So I knew it wasn't the length of time. And I think it was just having this person in my life that was just really, really negative. That I was constantly having to just pull out this was draining my energy on top of post vacation blues. I think it just all hit me at once and it really put me down for the count. And so I think, and I don't know if that's actually truly the reason. Time will only tell, but that's the only thing that was different, right? I get post vacation blues and I know that about myself. And the only thing that was different about my life is I had this person involved in my life that was just, again, every time I interacted with them, they were sucking the life out of me. I think what I thought is I was bringing positivity to their life. And that's not what's happening. They were actually sucking the positivity out of my life to bring positivity to their life. And I didn't realize that was what was happening. And so since then, I've done a good job of getting myself back to a really, really good space. And I've recognized that person in my life and how I need to change my interaction with that person / limit the interaction. But that doesn't disregard the difficultness that I went through of pulling myself out of this deep, dark place that I was at and almost infusing myself with light again. So I feel like it's taken, probably a full month to officially feel like myself 100%, maybe 3-ish weeks, maybe a month is a little long, but it feels like a month. And, I'm sitting here kind of looking back and I don't really have this whole podcast episode planned out. And that was part of me getting myself to film today was lowering this barrier for myself, and all this will tie in. I'm kind of, jumping ahead of myself talking about this here, but I don't have this podcast episode planned out. I don't know how long it's going to be. I don't know exactly what I'm talking about. I did make a couple notes so I can make sure I touch points that I feel are important and stuff that I've learned. But I really just had to come in here being like, hey, just do it. Just record something, record what's on your heart, record what you think can be helpful to people, and let's just move forward with that. So as I'm coming onto this episode, I'm thinking through how did I pull myself out of this? I really got into this all or nothing mindset. And I wouldn't say I'm an all or nothing personality, but man, I really struggled with it when I got into that depressive mode. I was just nothing for a long time. And to get myself out of this mentality, out of this nothing hole that I was in, I had to start doing something. And this was a really good learning lesson for me. Again, if you're someone that is an all or nothing person, this is going to massively apply to you. If you're not an all or nothing person, I think this will help you not only in your daily life, but just your fitness goals in general. And that way you always inch towards the goal that you're trying to make, right? Some of us are if I can't go a mile, I'm not going to move at all. I'd rather stay exactly where I am than if I can't go a mile. And some of us are hey, if I don't have a foot, I don't really want to go an inch. So I feel like any of these people that you are, this method can help you. So anyways, to go back to it, I was in this very all or nothing mentality. It's either I had to shower or you're going to stink for 6 days, right? It was one or the other for me. And so I finally just had this epiphany moment. I was like, Brie, you haven't done anything. You've been nothing. The laundry is piling up, dishes are dirty. The house isn't clean how you want it to be. You haven't gone to the gym in a hot minute. And I think it was a full 3 weeks. I didn't go to the gym. I didn't go for a daily walk, nothing. I didn't do anything. And I was like, you have to do something. I kind of just think back to what I tell my clients. And so I started just saying, hey, nothing is no longer an option. It's just no longer an option for you. You have to do something. Okay. And it reminded me of a client that I worked with recently. And, she was struggling with her step goal. And something that I told her, I was like, hey, you know what? We're struggling with hitting your steps. You're no longer going to have a step goal. Your goal is just you have to go for a walk every single day. I don't care if it's 2 minutes. I don't care if it's 5 minutes. I don't care if it's an hour walk. You just have to value and prioritize yourself enough that you look in your day and say, where can I go for a walk? And it doesn't matter if it's a minute or an entire hour. I wanted her to practice prioritizing her health goals and prioritizing herself and doing something over nothing. Right. And so when she started doing that, she'd look in her calendar and be like, hey, where can I go for a walk today? Okay, I have 5 minutes between calls. I'm going to do it. And naturally over time, she started hitting her step goal because as she started to find these pockets of time, she realized she had more time than she realized to do her step goal and started hitting her step goal. And so it reminded me of that time with that client that was very recent. I was like, you know what? I need to start doing something over nothing. And I started really small with just the laundry. I was like, I don't want to do the laundry right now. I was like, okay, that's fine that you don't want to do the laundry, but there's no option to not do the laundry. Like we're done with that option. There's no option to not do the laundry. So what feels manageable right now? Like you have to do something. I was like, you know what? The towels. Let's wash the towels because guess what? They're ratty. Like I don't have fancy schmancy bathing towels. Okay. My towels are from like when I lived at home, like middle school. Like some of these towels used to be yellow and now they're white because they've been so washed through. Like I don't have fancy towels. So I throw them in, I put some detergent and then throw them in the dryer. And then I fold them right out of the dryer and you put them away so easy. I was like, okay, let's do the towels. Like that is your first step. You're just going to do the towels. And once I got into that momentum of doing the laundry, I was like, okay, that felt really, really good. Like washing the towels, folding them, putting them away, that felt awesome. It's like, okay, what's next? Again, your option is that you can't do nothing. What do you want to do next? I was like, you know what? Let's wash the reds. I wash my reds separately. I wash my reds separately. It's a very, very small batch. And it would take me, 3 minutes to put away my reds. I was like, okay, let's wash the reds. Let's pull all the reds out. Let's wash them. And I did. I was like, okay, I'm halfway through laundry. I did towels. I did the reds. Now I just have darks and lights. That's it. And I was like, let's reward ourselves. Like, you did all this laundry today. We're going to separate out the laundry for tomorrow. And then tomorrow you're going to do the darks is what we're going to do next. But let's reward ourselves. You did half of the laundry today. That's amazing. And tomorrow we're going to do the other half and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to tackle the other half and whichever one feels easier. But again, nothing is no longer an option anymore. And I just started applying that over and over and over again. So when it came to working out, it's like, okay, let's work out. We're going to work out this week. And it's like, but I don't want to work out. Again, nothing is not an option anymore. Now for workouts, you can go do a cycling class. We could go do a yoga class. We can even go to the gym and just walk on the treadmill, but you physically have to schedule out when you're going to work out and you have to show up at that building, whether that's a gym, a yoga studio, a Pilates studio, a cycling class. You have to get in that habit again. And I was like, okay. And I met myself where I was at. I just did 2 times. I didn't even do the full 4, plan out 2 times. I was like, okay, you're going to go to the gym. And when you get there, you get to do whatever you feel like doing, which doesn't feel daunting. And I went and I walked. That's all I did is I went and I walked. And I did it twice and I committed those 2 times. So I was continually choosing something over nothing over and over and over again. And there's ever a time where I was like, I don't want to do this. It's like, again, nothing is on an option. Not doing this is on an option. However, why don't we tackle this in a smaller way? Again, I'm talking about this in like, laundry and then working out because it applies in so many different areas because I know when your life feels routine and put together, it makes everything else you're trying to do in your life that much easier. And so now how I head into my life all the time is, hey, nothing is not an option. What are we doing? Right. And I have this, list on my fridge of like all the things I need to get done in the week. Wash my car, clean out the fridge. Maybe I have to hang a picture frame, get so-and-so present for their birthday. I just write down whatever to-dos are on there. So if I'm ever in a moment where I'm like, okay, I'm choosing to do nothing. And it's like, no, we've got something we can do. And I go look at that list and I apply the same thing. I'm like, okay, what feels the least intimidating? We're no longer ordering this list of most important to least important. We're going to look at this list and say, okay, what feels the least hard for you to do? And I'm like, but I don't want to do my to-do list. I go, okay, I understand that. I hear you. Your feelings are valid. Okay. All feelings are valid, but not all actions are right now. Okay. You don't have the option to do nothing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pick something. Hey, folding socks is on the list. Why don't we fold the socks? Easy. Guess what? You could put on Vanderpump Rules and fold the socks when we watch TV. I'm like, oh, you know what? That does sound kind of nice. Let me do that. And then I fold the socks and I feel so good that the socks are folded. And then I physically get to cross off and check mark. And I love crossing and checking mark off a to-do list. I'm like, okay, that's awesome. Let's celebrate what we've gotten done on the to-do list. And now let's make dinner and let's unwind for the night and brush your teeth, get ready for bed, and go to sleep. But to wrap that all up, I've just changed my mindset from nothing is never an option anymore. And it's not that we're all human. You're going to have an experience where you go through something absolutely terrible in your life. A family member, God forbid, passes away in your family and you need a couple days to do nothing, right? But it's so funny how us as humans, when we don't feel great emotionally, we navigate towards neglecting ourselves in other ways. Like, it doesn't feel great to not feel good emotionally, and then your house is getting messy, and then you start not smelling really good because you're not showering. Like, it just makes you feel worse. And so even if I'm to have something really tragic happen in my life, I really want to start setting up my mindset to be like something over nothing, no matter how small, and something over nothing. When I was, again, TMI, like not showering, I finally told, like, how I got myself to finally shower was, I was like, Bree, you're going to feel so good. Why are you depriving yourself of a really good feeling? You don't feel good right now. You feel like shit. You feel terrible emotionally and physically. Why are you robbing yourself of a good moment? And I'm like, yeah. Why? I mean, I know it feels really, really hard for me to go and take a shower right now, but I know there's never a time where I've taken a shower and I've been like, that was a terrible idea. I feel worse after taking a shower. You've never felt that way. So let's stop robbing yourself of feeling better. And so I finally took a shower. However, if I was in a deeper moment, I'd be like, hey, you know what? Something over nothing. You're going to grab a rag and you're going to give yourself a rag bath. Like, we have to do something or nothing, or you're going to wash your face, or you're going to clean your private areas, TMI, like, we're going to choose something over nothing. I feel like this is a really, really big revolution that I've had with myself. And it's so funny, as you go into your journey just as an adult, whether it's fitness related or personal, you feel like you learn everything. And then constantly life throws you different situations and you learn more about yourself. So I hope that tip helps you and encourages you, not just in your own personal life. If you feel, behind all the time because you're constantly chasing laundry or chasing meal prep or whatever it is, start small, something over nothing. If you don't want to meal prep, that's fine, but you don't get to not do something entirely. You got to chop up the squash or chop up your potatoes, or you have to do something towards meal prep. You don't have to do the full thing, but you have to do something. You don't want to go to the gym? That's fine, but you're going to go for a walk instead. We're going to do something. And hey, you know what? You don't want to go for a 30-minute walk? That's fine, but we've at least got to do 5 minutes. We're going to choose something over nothing. And as you start to do that, you don't give yourself this out and then you feel even more behind. Again, I'm going to reiterate, I understand we're all human. We all go through emotional things. So I'm not saying I want you to push yourself to the brink of insanity because you're getting to this point now where you're like, I always have to do something. Bree said I can't ever do nothing. It's not what I'm saying. But probably 90% of the time in your life, you can choose, no matter how small it is, to do something over nothing. That something is going to move you closer to either your goals or to you feeling better or to something that you want to do. The second thing I want to talk about that I feel like really helped me to pull myself out of that kind of just, again, slump, dark place that I was in was rewarding myself in ways that still involve the habit. I feel like a lot of times the way we reward ourselves for a habit is almost by removing the habit. We're like, okay, you know what? You ate fruits and veggies, so now we're going to go crazy on the sugar. Or, hey, you worked out twice. Guess what? You don't have to work out for another week. It's like we reward ourselves with the opposite. And I started, and I'm not going to say it doesn't always have to work this way, right? A reward system does not always have to involve the habit, right? Your kids can go to the dentist, and because they're good at the dentist, they get a sticker, right? Like, a sticker has nothing to do with the dentist. There's nothing wrong with rewarding yourself outside of the actual habit, right? But for example, when I was having a really, really hard time going to the gym, I didn't reward myself by going to the gym, but then not going to the gym. I rewarded myself by maybe changing the time that I went to the gym or maybe changing the activity that I did, right? So if I made it to the gym, I was like, bravo, you know what? Because you made it physically through these doors, all you got to do is go walk. That's your reward, is that we're going to make the activity that you have to do a lower barrier to entry, and it's easier for you to feel good and positive and not like, oh, I have to go like lift weights. Like, that feels so daunting. It was my reward for crossing that threshold of driving myself to the gym, getting through those doors was, hey, the activity we're going to do today is you're just going to go for a walk. Another example, as I built on the working out, I started, once I was consistent at going to the gym again, I was like, okay, now I really, really, really want to start working out in the morning. And so I worked out in the morning. I got up at 5 a.m., went and worked out 2 days in a row. I was like, because you went 2 days, tomorrow when you go work out, we're going to work out at 10 a.m. We're going to do this. We're work at 10 a.m. We're going to reward yourself because you got up early. And I'm not going to reward you for working out 2 days early by, guess what? You have to work out the rest of the week. It's, hey, we're still going to get our 4 workouts in, but guess what? We're going to go at a later time today because there's the reward for, hey, you worked out in the morning. So I was building on the consistency of me working out and then also wanting to work out in the morning, but rewarding myself that still involved working out, if that makes sense. Again, reward systems don't always have to work this way, right? If you're someone that's like, hey, you know what? If maybe your gym's by Starbucks, right? And you're like, okay, you know what? Every time I go work out, I get to go by Starbucks and get my, oat milk, 2 sugar-free vanilla pump latte. And that's your reward for going to the gym. It doesn't always have to be that way, but a lot of times if you can somehow involve the habit that you're building in the reward system, that can keep you on the habit and actually shows you like, hey, it's not that we're involving this habit sometimes and not other times. This habit is here to stay. We're just going to reinforce this habit with rewarding ourselves in a way that involves this habit. Back to the laundry example, right? When I, finally did laundry and I started with the towels and then I started with the reds, I reward myself and say, hey, you know what? We're going to stop here and you get to not do any more laundry today and you're going to do the rest tomorrow. I rewarded myself with, again, not doing laundry entirely, like, hey, you know what? You've done enough for the week. Like, we're not going to do any more laundry this week. Good job. Good for you. I was like, hey, you know what? I'm so proud of you for doing half of the laundry. Like, that's a big feat that you did half because we originally started with only doing the towels and you did that. And then you went and did the reds. We're going to pause here and we're going to save the darks for tomorrow. And we're going to do the darks tomorrow. Again, it's just another example to show you of how I'm involving the reward. The reward system is involved with still doing the habit. And so I think that was really, really big for me in, again, just to my normal life of like taking care of myself. And then when I was really, really struggling to get back into the gym with things. And that kind of ties into how I eventually filmed this podcast. I was just, really, really hesitating on coming back and just felt like it was this huge burden to come back for. You guys probably don't know, I don't think I've ever talked about this, but I plan out my podcast and I plan out and type out notes of what I want to talk about and points I want to hit. And it just felt so daunting. I'm like, oh, I've got to sit down and like, I need to figure out what I want to talk about and make sure I go over all these perfect points and make sure that it all relates and then talk about this. And I want it to be roughly this long. I was like, Brie, stop. You are having this analysis paralysis of if it's not going to be perfect, then it's not worth doing. You're doing this all or nothing mindset. What I want you to do is we're going to remove the barriers that are keeping you from filming the podcast. And what that is you forcing yourself to plan this out and have all these notes. So what we're going to do is you're just going to sit down and you're going to record a podcast and you're just going to talk from your heart about what you've been going through and what you feel like has helped. And granted, I told you guys earlier, I did type a couple things down just because I was like, ooh, as I sat down, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take that pressure off myself of that I have to be fully planned out and I have to show up with all of these things and, a perfectly bulletined podcast ready to go. It's going to be a certain length of time. And I was like, no, like you're just going to sit down. If you talk for 10 minutes, that's fine. You talk for 10 minutes. If you talk for an hour, awesome. We talk for an hour. And so when I sat down, I was like, ooh, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this. And then I went to wrap back in and I typed a couple notes up and I was like, okay, I feel really good. And then started recording the podcast. And so, maybe this is the last point. Again, I didn't type this up. This is what's coming to my brain is you just have to meet yourself where you're at, but you also have to put just a little bit of pressure on yourself. And the way I was putting the pressure on myself was saying, nothing is not an option anymore. I've used this analogy in other podcasts, or maybe I haven't. I'm pretty sure I have. I know with clients I have, how people make really, really good wine. And when you're growing wine, you want just enough stress on the vine that you get the best fruit that is produced by wine vines is the vines that are under just enough stress that they produce really, really good grapes, but not so much stress that it kills it, right? And that's adaptation in a nutshell, is you are putting just enough pressure to grow, but not so much that you cause burnout. And for me, the pressure that I needed was saying, hey, Brie, you've been in this nothing phase for a hot minute now. I'm sorry, but you no longer have the option of nothing anymore. I don't care how small something is. I don't care if you wash a single sock in the washing machine. You've got to do something. I don't care if you get baby wipes and clean your body. You have to clean yourself. And that was that little bit of pressure that I needed where, I feel like when it comes to mental health and all this kind of stuff, people really, you want to be careful. You don't push yourself so much or have so much pressure on yourself in an unhealthy way that it just drives you worse and drives you mad. And so finding that healthy balance of where do I put the pressure on myself to grow from the spot that I'm in, but not so much pressure that I dig myself a deeper hole, right? Because being this all or nothing mindset, trying to go all was digging me deeper and deeper and deeper. And I was like, we've got to get you out. We've got to just hand you a rope. And you've got to start just pulling yourself out one hand at a time. And so again, taking the mentality, you're giving myself the mentality or taking away the option of there, nothing being an option was just enough pressure that caused me to start producing fruit, but not so much pressure that my fruit was dying. So I hope that analogy makes sense. That's the balance that you have to find in your own life. And I don't think you can go wrong with starting super, super small and saying, hey, like I just said a few seconds ago, I don't care if you start cleaning yourself with baby wipes. I don't care if you go to the gym and you grab a dumbbell and you curl it for 1 rep and you go, okay, I'm done. I don't care how small it is, but nothing is no longer an option. And that was a huge game changer for me in getting myself out of this hole. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I hope that was really helpful. I know I'm talking ad nauseum about this and I feel like I'm talking in circles. So I'm going to stop here. I hope this was helpful. If you guys found this helpful, just as you're kind of thinking and contemplating your own life of, again, whether it's your personal life you're applying this to or your fitness journey or whatever, I hope it was helpful. And, part of me is like feeling like insecure. Is like, I've come back with an episode. It's not going to help anyone. I know it's going to help someone. It's just, me again, having this barrier of like expectations of like what a podcast episode has to be. And that was my barrier and I had to tear it down. And now I'm here and now I'm rambling. So all that to say, if you enjoyed the podcast episode, feel free to shoot me a DM. Let me know what nuggets you got. If you're on Spotify, you can leave a comment. So leave a comment. If you're on Spotify or Apple listening to this, or even YouTube, thumbs up, 5 stars. That helps the podcast immensely, getting reviews and getting star ratings and all that. And of course, I just love to hear any feedback on episodes that you guys have. So I will see you guys in the next episode because we are officially back. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Damn Strong Podcast. Show me some love by leaving a review and sharing a screenshot of this episode on your Instagram stories. Until next time, stay strong.